Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Welcome everyone, very nice to see you tonight. We're going to talk about Krishna and the philosophy of Krishna consciousness tonight, because just by the discussion of such topics, one purifies the heart. And the body is the chariot, and the heart is the driver. So, according to the state of our heart, we'll go in different directions. And as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suite Sacharacharam Hetonani Nakonteya Jagadvi Parivartate. This material nature is working on in a mechanical way. And Natalie, will you move just a little more of this, because I can't see Raja for a second. No, it's not your fault. Perfect. I know. No problem. So, Krishna says also in the Bhagavad Gita, Nahi kashit shadamapi jatu tishchet karma krit karyate havasha karma sarva prakriti jargunai. That we're being pushed by the modes of material nature to go in various directions. And we are affected by the modes because of our sangha, or connection with them. Sa anga means we connect with various modes of nature. This material world is made of the modes of material nature in goodness, passion, ignorance, sattva, rajas, tamas. And in the Gita, Krishna says, Purusha prakritisto hi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sarasad yoni janmasu. That according to how we connect ourselves to these three modes of material nature, sattva, rajas, tamas, we'll become constituted ourselves. In other words, we become infected by those modes. And then we take on a particular character, and because of that character, we do things in a certain way. We think in a certain way. Our determination is characterized by our association with the modes of material nature. Our work habits, the way we see other people, is a result of our conditioning by the three modes of material nature, and so on. And the contamination by the three modes of material nature is a long-standing affliction, because in the Gita is explained that we're moving from one body to the next. Even in this life, Krishna says, Dehinosmin yata dehe, komaran yovanam jara, tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. That we're changing bodies right before our eyes, from boyhood to youth to old age. And then we leave this body, go to another body. It's not that the body's growing, the body's changing constantly. But I am the same. I'm the soul within the body. And I've been through many lifetimes, and in each of those lifetimes, I retain the subtle body. Although the gross body is left behind, the subtle body made of mind, intelligence, and ego transmigrates to the next body. Therefore, I carry with me the same tendencies that I had because of my association with the modes of nature in previous lives. And I also have, I carry with me my karma. So, we come not in this world with a clean slate, but with an agenda already set for us in this life. And that's business as usual. That goes on constantly in the material world. Every living entity is subjected to this law. As Brahma mentions in his Samhita, Yes twindra gopamata vendra mahosa karma bandharu rupa palabhajanamata noti. Karmani nirdahati kintucha bhakti bhajam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Everyone's affected by this law of karma, from Indra, who's the king of heaven, down to the Indragopa, which is the tiniest little insect or germ. All are affected by the law of karma. However, When one engages in devotional service, then there's the eradication of this karma, and also the tendency to create more karma. So, hearing about Krishna is the first step to purifying the heart, and also saying Krishna's names, repeating Krishna's names because they're transcendental. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Cheto dharpana marjanam bhavamaha davagni nirvapanam. He describes how this singing of the names of God cleanses all these tendencies which connect us to the material world. Cheto dharpana marjanam. He says the heart is like a mirror, and it becomes dirty, and then my self-image is obscured, and I also can't see God. When I'm in Maya, which means I'm covered by illusion, and I identify myself with the body, then I can't see Krishna. And when I see Krishna, when I come into the light of Krishna consciousness, then practically I don't see Maya, because we see everything in relationship to Krishna. So far, what have you heard? Just reflect back anything that's stuck in your mind so far. And how is everybody today? On a scale of 1 to 10. 10 means you're in ecstasy, and 1 means you gotta go. Who said 10? 10, very good. We have a 10. It's possible to live in that realm of a 10. When one is affected by the lower modes of material nature, no matter what one's surroundings, materially, one feels like a 1 or a 2. People have depression because of the affliction by the modes of material nature. But a devotee's happy and peaceful. It says in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that only the bhakta is completely peaceful. Bhukti mukti siddhikami sakali ashanta. Krishna bhakti nishkam ataiva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhikami sakali ashanta. This is the first I'm going to teach you right now. So first one is, it says that the bhakta, Krishna bhakta nishkam. So everyone say Krishna bhakta nishkam. Nishkam. So kam means this urge to enjoy the senses in the material world. And nishkam means that that's gone. No desire. So Krishna bhakta means a servant of Krishna, a devotee of Krishna. Krishna bhakti nishkam. And then the next word is ataiva. So say ataiva. Ataiva. It means ataeva, but it's put together by Sandhi rules. Ataiva, shanta. Say shanta. Means? Peace. Yeah, there it is, peace. Everyone wants some peace. It's hard to get any peace these days, right? So this verse tells us the formula why the devotee has peace. Krishna bhakta nishkam ataiva shanta. So it says because the Krishna bhakta doesn't have any calm, in other words, he doesn't have any desire for his own senses. He's not working for himself. Krishna bhakti nishkam ataiva shanta bhukti mukti siddhi. So these are naming 3 other kinds of categories of people. So bhukti means somebody who wants material enjoyment. Do you suppose there's anybody in that category in Silicon Valley? Is there? Really? There's somebody who's thinking about trying to get material enjoyment? Really? Okay, so bhukti means thinking that if I could just get enough what, then I'd be happy. Money. That's the main thing? If I get enough money? But everybody knows money doesn't buy happiness, right? Do they know that? Everybody knows money doesn't buy happiness? Everyone's heard that, right? No one will disagree, I think. I mean, unless they're being disingenuous. Okay, so bhukti means searching after the material happiness. Bhukti, and then mukti means somebody who wants liberation. They want to give the whole thing up. So usually what happens, this is the normal pattern. Someone wants bhukti. They want material things. They want them bad. And they work really hard for them. And then what happens? They get full satisfaction after they get it, or what? Disappointment. They are disappointed. That's an interesting word, disappointment. They thought they would be appointed to a position, and then they were disappointed, right? They're disappointed. What other kinds of results come from working hard, going hard at it to get material happiness in this world? Just off the top of your head. Frustration. We need a dictionary to look up these words. What is frustration anyway? Where does the word come from? Frustration is a form of anger. Mild form of anger. Okay, so you don't get your way, so you become frustrated. Do you all get your way, whatever you want? The time to do the actual... Where's the microphones? Okay. Time to do the actual thing that you want runs out. Can you say more about that? That seems to be some realized knowledge that you have.
The real purpose of basically being here in this world is to realize yourself and...
It's on mute. You got to press the button. Go ahead.
And do service to Krishna, but if we go by the laid out standards that are there these days, like about 35, 40 years are gone by the time you realize that, whatever you have done.
So 30, 40 years run out. So let's analyze what that means. In other words, you're working for a goal. When do you start? Where's Swaraj? We can ask him. When do you start working for your goal? Kindergarten? If your parents are very motivated on your behalf, they might put you in French school and everything like that. Have you learn gourmet cooking when you're in kindergarten and all kinds of other things. And kids have a little Harvard t-shirt. They're bound for Harvard when they're just born and so forth. So then what's the goal there? Of kindergarten, and then what? On to college already? Okay, so college.
Jump
you just
college.
jumped past the grade school.
Yeah, but it's always one. It's
I
always.
wish I had. I hated grade school.
It's always one more thing, one more test, one more.
Always looking
hurdle.
forward to the next thing.
Yeah, the next hurdle.
You notice that a lot of times young people are thinking, as soon as I become 18, then I'll be free, get some freedom, get some more liberty. Once I'm 25, then I'll get this.
Yeah.
And then what?
Well, then you graduate from college and you find out the economy has fallen out and there are no jobs.
But still, you got to work. You got to try for
right.
it, right?
Yeah.
So ideally, if you get a job, then
right, and then you work for promotions.
Okay, then
to please your boss.
Then
and with the promise that you will be taken care of, that you'll get your bonus, you'll get job security.
So you're looking for, once you start the working, you're looking forward to retirement and security and things like that, right? And what happens in retirement?
You get
What's
bored.
that? 401k is gone. 401k is gone.
And you're bored.
You're all so negative here. So anyway, the 401k could be gone. All these things could happen. But generally, even if you retire,
well, some people retire.
What happens if in an ideal situation?
Well, they're out playing golf and going to Hawaii and having. Some people are and having a good life.
They get to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And how do they like it once they get there?
But a lot of people end up bored.
Not very much.
Bored.
I used to live in Hawaii. People were very disappointed when they get there.
Yeah.
It's the same 7-Elevens there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same, sensitivity to heat. There are mosquitoes. You see a few beaches, a few sunsets. but it doesn't really make you happy.
Right.
And if you wait your whole life to go to Hawaii for your retirement, that's a sad state of affairs. The only good thing is the devotees do Harinam and Kalakawa, and you walk around the corner and say, "What was that?" So there's a way in which one's always, through bhakti, one's always anticipating the next thing, next thing, next thing. And as Jai pointed out, one runs out the clock and is still waiting for the thing to happen. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says, Kutra Ashisha, Shruti Sukham Mrigatrishni Rupa. He asked the question, where is it? Where do you actually get the happiness you're looking for? At what point are you actually satisfied? Is there a point when you're actually satisfied in your life? So the bhaktis don't actually ever get it. They're always anticipating, and then they become frustrated. And then they search for mukti. What does mukti mean? What does it, say it in more practical terms. What is the feeling somebody gets when they want mukti after bhakti? Describe it. Ananta?
Peace, freedom from anxiety.
You got to use the microphone because it's being broadcast.
Yes, one definition of mukti would be freedom from anxieties.
You want freedom from anxieties. What are causing the anxieties?
Unfulfilled material aspirations.
Unfulfilled material aspirations. U-F, material aspiration. U-F-M-A. U-F, ufma.
Ufmas.
So from ufma, we get the desire for mukti, is that what it? Unfulfilled material aspirations, ufma. How are your ufmas? How many ufmas do you have? Unfulfilled material aspirations, ufma. So after unfulfilled material aspirations, then what's the feeling? Can you describe it?
So, because we want so many things and we try to fulfill them and realize them on the material plane, and then that's not happening, we decide that stopping doing things might be the solution.
Okay, now that sounds like you're giving, this is good, you're giving a general description and a summary. Tell us from your life, that very moment when you decided you didn't want any more part, you didn't want a part of the bhakti part. What was the defining moment in your life? And where were you, how old were you, and what happened when you said, no mas?
Well, I'm still working on that one, actually. I'm still trying to do less of that material and more of...
Yeah, but there was a point at which you said, I like this Hare Krishna idea, the spiritual life. It looks like a different idea than bhakti.
Right.
So was there a point? Was there a revelation, an epiphany? There's some new people coming in the door. Could you please, somebody go greet them warmly and bring them in and show them around? Yes.
Well, in my story, I came to America, to the American shores from another part of the world, from another continent, and a lot of people think on that part of the world, they think that all your material...
A lot of people. Did you think that?
I did that. Yeah.
You had the idea that when you got to America?
Plenty of Hollywood movies, and so I got a vision that this side of the planet automatically fulfills all your
welcome
material desires.
So you had this idea when you were in, where were you?
I was born in Russia.
And you were in Russia, and you had an idea, if you could just get to America, then your desires will be fulfilled.
Well, not just by getting here, but by getting here and doing something else, which I wasn't exactly clear what it was.
Okay, was there a moment in time when you actually got here that you thought, maybe it's not everything I thought it would be?
Yeah, it was a gradual process.
What was the first stage? Do you remember any particular specific incident?
I remember a positive incident of finding the alternative by reading Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita.
Oh.
That was a moment of revelation when I picked up.
Anything particular you read that sparked that?
Well, I started reading the book and I got more and more involved and sucked into the content. And at one moment, I remember reading that the Supreme Personality of Godhead statement. I was trying, and it didn't make any sense to me until this one day, the word personality actually kind of, manifested in my head, and I actually thought, hey, this person that's in charge of everything, he actually has an identity and personality, so he does care, and you can actually have a connection, a relationship with him. So I remember that moment as revelation.
That was a distinct moment in your life.
A distinct moment, yeah.
This is very interesting. See, he came from Russia, and he was thinking, if I get to America, and I get the right circumstances, then what were you going to get?
I don't know. It wasn't exactly clear. I didn't have like a definite plan.
There was an optimism, though, right?
Optimism, yes.
Did you lose your optimism?
It got redirected. I didn't lose the optimism, but
okay.
I understand the real process of...
Very interesting. So we can change. You changed. Well, this bhukti mukti, bhukti means I have an optimism for getting something in the material world that will make me happy. And there's a point at which some people realize that that's not possible, it's not going to happen, that actually there's a colossal hoax going on in the material world, and therefore they aspire to disentangle themselves altogether from the material world. And they may at that point not have an idea about what you were saying about redirecting their optimism. So there may be a point at which one says, I don't want anything to do with the material world, therefore I'll just do nothing. I'll become free from all desire. I'll become liberated from the material world altogether. And those without a clear idea about what to do in the positive sense then might take to a philosophy. Have you heard of philosophies? Can you describe a philosophy that doesn't have the way to transfer your optimism but simply gives up the material world?
Well, they generally call that impersonalism. That's what you're referring to?
Could be.
The philosophy, yeah. So
you tell us.
Well, the idea is that because we become frustrated by fulfilling our aspirations and senses, if we stop all sensual perception and stop being all together, then with that we will eliminate the misery of existence. So some philosophies, they think that just by stopping, the only way to stop miseries is to stop existence altogether. They do not offer an option, an opportunity of different kind of existence.
Okay, so you don't know about something positive, so simply you negate what you have now. This could be a form of liberation. Now just take a break. Welcome back, Suraj. We're glad to see you here. We want everyone to be comfortable in this class. First of all, how's the temperature? You want it to go down a little bit?
I put the AC on when I came in, so
it's on the way down, so that'll be taken care of soon. How's everyone for sitting? How are you feeling? A couple of tips. One is, in the back of the room, we have these zafus. And Shamalangi's getting some zafus. One trick is, when you're sitting on the floor like this, if you put a zafu, if you sit on a zafu, it keeps your hips above your knees, and that'll make you more comfortable. And then there's another big change you can make, and that is sit in a chair. We have nothing against chairs here at all. So please feel free to also sit in a chair if that feels better for you. Main thing's be comfortable. Another thing is, let's fill in the spaces too. When other devotees come in, fill in the spaces, there's no big gaps in the middle. Good. And if you need water or anything like that, there's a filter right out in the hall with glasses. You can have filtered water. Okay, so we talked about bhukti, and bhukti is the endeavor, the optimism for getting something, some happy situation here in the material world, so my senses will be fulfilled. And most of the devotees today have been speaking disparagingly of that endeavor. And then Ananta also told us about the feeling of giving that up, and that there are some philosophies that describe how you can become a non-person, basically. Have no desire, abolish your personality. And there's an idea for mukti, or merging also into the Supreme, becoming one with the Supreme, and giving up your individual identity. So this is also, interestingly enough, considered by the bhakti texts, like the Nectar of Devotion and the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, to be a kind of a material desire. It's just the opposite side of the coin. Sorry to use a cliche like that, but really what it means is that you're just negating. So if you, for instance, are working at a job you don't like and you go on strike, you say, I'm not working anymore because I don't like the way it's going, then you're in an interim period. But sooner or later you have to go back to work somewhere. And similarly, this kind of liberation means that I go on strike from bhukti, from trying to enjoy the material world. But where are you going to go? You can't have a permanent situation, according to Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita, because it's your nature to be active. Either in the material world or in the spiritual world, there's activity. So this idea of inactivity won't last because of our very nature. This is our Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. So bhukti and mukti are two kinds of unsustainable situations for the soul, unsatisfactory. And then there's what's called siddhi, according to this verse I'm giving you. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi. Everyone say siddhi. So siddhi, sometimes people practice focusing. You focus in school, right? Swaraj? So does it give you powers when you focus? Yeah, that's a kind of power, to learn something, to get knowledge. And to do that, you take some austerity. You sit in one place and you look at a book. You take it in through your senses. You put it on paper. You look at it back. You do experiments with it and everything like that. And then you have some knowledge. Knowledge is power. There's a way in which the mystic yogis, they practice this intense kind of focus and connecting with the very primal forces of the universe. There are these primal vibrations and forces in the universe, and the yogis become connected with them through their intensive focus and meditation, and they can channel those energies, and they can show amazing powers. And this is called siddhi. They attain these kind of perfections, and they're very enticing. Once people have a taste for them, they have a tendency to become addicted to them. And so this also is a kind of material desire, according to the bhakti teachers, that if you get involved in trying to manipulate the subtle material energies and become attached to it, this is a kind of material desire also. So these are the three things: bhukti, mukti, siddhi. And then kami. Kami means that all these people, the bhuktis, the muktis, and the siddhis. So what's the bhukti? That's material desires. Chasing after something material. Like what? Money. Okay. Anything else? Fame. Name. Fame. Pleasure. Pleasure of the senses. Buy yourself an island somewhere. Bhukti, mukti. Mukti means? Liberation. You want to give it all up because you become frustrated. What are we have a couple terms we need to define also. Oh, you got to use the mic. People everywhere want to hear what this means.
So frustrate means to prevent from accomplishing a purpose or fulfilling a desire. To cause feelings of discouragement or bafflement.
Ever feel that, anybody? Or is it just me? Okay, go ahead.
To make ineffectual or invalid, nullify.
Where does it come from?
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Latin, frustrare, to disappoint.
Frustrare, to disappoint. Hey, that leads us back to the other word. We wanted to see what disappoint means also.
Yeah.
I think it's very important philosophically to disappoint. Appoint. Disappoint. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, verse says, Yene ravindaksha vimuktamaninas tvayasta bhava davashudha buddhaya aruya krishchena param tata patantito nadrita yushmaram grayaha. That whatever appointment you get in this material world by working really hard, if it isn't reestablishing your relationship with Krishna, then you'll be disappointed. Maybe just look up appointment.
Disappoint, to fail to satisfy the hope, desire, or expectation.
To fail to satisfy the hope, desire, or
expectation.
Expectation. Did that ever happen to anybody? Yeah? All the time? Someone told me the other day that she said, since none of my plans have ever worked, I'm going to try taking advice. Okay, go ahead.
And next one is to frustrate or thwart.
Goes back in a circle.
Yeah. And this comes from, I don't know what, OFR, is it French?
Old, OFR.
Old.
Yeah.
Okay. Disappointier, reversal, and yeah.
Look up a point.
Yeah. Point. To select or designate to fill an office or position. To fix or set by authority or by mutual agreement. Third, to furnish. And then,
so you're fixed in a position? That was one of them?
To fix or set by authority.
To fix or set by authority, okay.
Yeah.
And where does it come from?
That old French appointier, to arrange.
To arrange. Whatever arrangement you make becomes unraveled. Disappointed. Disappoint. Whatever arrangement was made, it gets undone. Has that ever happened to anybody? Anybody ever? Nirkula raised her hand. What happened, Nirkula? Just have a feeling it's happened a lot, huh? Even you're given the position by some authority and then you can become disappointed. So this is the characteristic of material life which leads to frustration. Okay, so the verse was, Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ataiva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. So Ashanta means without any peace. And so the verse says that the Bhuktis, the Muktis, and the Siddhis, they don't have any peace because they want something. They're still after something. But the Bhaktas, Bhakta, means Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ataiva Shanta. They're happy because they are properly appointed. They don't want anything that's not substantial. Hare Krishna Mali, welcome. Nice to see you. So far, what have we talked about? Just reflect back anything that you heard so far that's stuck in your mind.
think unless you are bhakta, you will be always unhappy.
Unless you're a bhakta, you'll be always unhappy. That's our claim. That's what we're saying. So there's a lot of detailed philosophy to explain why that's true. The bhakti teachers go into great detail to explain what is the cause of the frustration. That's a very interesting topic. And then they explain why it is that the bhakta is actually happy. Today, Vishaka Leela asked me to talk about churning the Bhagavatam. Can you look up the word churn so we know what we're talking about? Do you like the word churn? I do. It reminds me of ice cream when I was a kid, because my dad used to make ice cream, and you churn it. There's something, that's very hopeful about churning, like something's going to come out of it. Generally, it's not pejorative, or it's not in a negative, not using a negative term, churning, although it could be, I'm sure. But it sounds very optimistic. And there's a story in the Srimad Bhagavatam, just a fascinating story, about how the demigods and the demons churned the milk ocean. I mean, that in and of itself is fascinating, that there's a milk ocean. And they used the Mandara mountain as the churning rod, which is a gigantic mountain. And they used the snake, Vaisesika, as the rope to churn with. And we'll talk more about that. What does churn mean anyway? Looking up a lot of words here today.
So churn, first they say the noun, a vessel or device in which cream or milk is agitated to separate the oily globules.
I knew it.
From the caseous and serous parts.
Okay.
Used to make butter. And then it says, the verb, to stir or agitate milk or cream in a churn in order to make butter. To make by the agitation of milk or cream. And it doesn't give the origin.
Doesn't give an origin, huh?
Yeah, I'm looking.
The origins from the Bhagavatam? Okay, so churn is a Sanskrit word from the Bhagavatam.
No, it does have medieval English ch, churn, but it doesn't give a meaning after that.
Okay. It's a nice word anyway. So, churning the milk ocean. The story is that the demigods were in a disadvantaged position. And this happens a lot. No matter who one is in this world, or what kind of facility one has right now, it's certain that things are going to change. If you just wait long enough, the conditions will change, and whatever you have will be reapportioned. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, he urges over and over again that one should be tolerant, because things tend to change all the time in this material world. And if I try to hold on to them, then I will be frustrated and disappointed by all these different kinds of changes. At a particular time in history, and this happens over and over again, the demigods, who are the ones in the mode of goodness and who are supposed to have the upper hand, didn't. Bali Maharaj, who's the king of the demons, had an advantage, and he took over the universe with his demon forces. So, the demigods went to Brahma, and they said, please do something. And Brahma prayed to Vishnu. And he offered beautiful prayers. Vishnu appeared and said that the timing isn't right for you right now. This is a very interesting point, because even Vishnu, who's omniscient and omnipotent, he came and he said, can't do anything for you right now. You're going to have to wait. So this is an interesting point. It always fascinated me that Vishnu comes and he says, all right, fix everything. He said, you're going to have to make an armistice. You're going to have to make a pact. You'll have to cooperate with these demons for a little while to get what you want. That's an interesting lesson. So he had a plan anyway. And that's also another good point, and that is that when Krishna has a plan, that we need to go along with the plan and see how it comes out. We can't always prejudge what's happening. Oftentimes it appears that we're going the wrong direction, but devotees who are clearly connected to the instructions that are coming from a superior source feel confident that if I stay the course, no matter what the changes are, that I will improve and that the situation will improve also. And that whatever is coming to me, which seems to be putting me in an adverse situation, because I'm sticking to the right principle, I will be vindicated. This is a good principle to follow. And so devotees take the instructions of the scriptures, of the sadhus, those who have been practicing the process of yoga for some time and have wisdom. Actually, they've realized it because they've gone through many different situations. And from the guru, who's like the captain, who's appointed to give you specific instructions to help you move forward and so forth. Triangulating, taking these kinds of instructions, one can go through. So that's what the demigods did. They were in a disadvantaged situation. They went for superior help. And they got it. And that's another really good lesson. If you sincerely ask for this kind of direction, it comes from up to down. And this is the great miracle of being a human being. You can take this kind of help by inquiring. And therefore the Brahma Sutra says, Tato Brahma Jignasa. Now that you have this facility, inquire, ask for something bigger. Don't ask for little things that are available to animals that have little tiny brains the size of peas and pins and things like that. But now you have greater facility, very special facility. Ask what is the biggest thing and how to come to the end of all suffering and so forth. So the demigods did that. They got good direction from Lord Vishnu, and he had a plan. And the plan was he was going to make a pact between the demigods and the demons to churn the milk ocean. And they would work together, and good things would come out of the milk ocean. So they took all kinds of herbs and grasses and other vegetables. They threw them into the milk ocean, and presumably this was with the churning, some nectar would come out. So that was the goal. They had a common goal they were working towards, in other words, and that was nectar or amrit would come out. And by taking that amrit, then they would become immortal. Which doesn't mean they literally become immortal. I mean, the soul never dies, but the body does, no matter if you're a demigod or a demon. But there's a sense in which one has such longevity that it's considered to be immortality. So they got together, and by Vishnu's plan at the milk ocean, and first the demigods and demons worked together to take Mandara Hill off of its axis and bring it out to the ocean. And because the hill is filled with gold, it's very heavy. And as they carried it, they all got crushed. So Vishnu came and he put his glance on them and he revived them. And then he helped them carry it. Garuda came down and he got on the back of Garuda, he carried the hill out into the ocean and set it down. So then he told Garuda, you got to leave. Do you know why he told Garuda you have to leave? Because the churning rope would be Vasuki, who's a snake, and Garuda and snakes don't get along. That's pretty funny. So there they are, and now the demons and demigods are trying to hold up the Mandara hill in the water so they can churn it, but it was sinking, and they became embarrassed because they're known to be very powerful, but they couldn't hold up the hill. So who appeared? Ajita, Krishna, who's infallible, and he came in the form of a tortoise. So Krishna comes in all different forms. So one of his celebrated incarnations is in the form of a tortoise, and a gigantic tortoise, because then he was under the Mandara hill and holding it up in the milk ocean. And according to Jayadev Goswami, who sings the song about all the different incarnations of the Lord, he enjoyed the churning on his back because he had a little itch, so he got the mountain to scratch his back. And meanwhile, he's holding up this gigantic hill. Kids, are you all listening back there? Is this interesting? It's a story. Okay, so now Vishnu is the one who saved them, brought the hill over, and now he's the one holding it up in the water. And then they tied Vaisesika. Now here comes a big lesson. They tied Vaisesika, who's this gigantic serpent. He was going to be the rope that would churn the hill. And so Vishnu got in front, right by the mouth of Vaisesika. And the demigods got behind him, and the demons were in the back. And the demons started to complain, because that's what demons do. That's the demoniac mentality in the material world. Complain about everything. I don't like this, I don't like that. Let me adjust it to my own liking. And so this is funny. They said, we're actually more learned than the demigods. We know more about Scripture, we're stronger, we're smarter. Why should we be in the back? Why do we get the tail and they get the mouth? So Vishnu said, fine, let's change. So he goes to the back, and all the demigods go with him, all the demons, ha, 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 they go to the front. And then the funny thing was, they started churning, and fire starts coming out of the mouth of Vaisesika and burning all the demons. And the demigods in back were getting this nice, from the clouds, Vishnu arranged that the mist was coming down. So they were staying nice and cool down there. I find that interesting because in my own demoniac mentality, I'm always thinking, let me adjust things in this world for my own happiness. And when I do, I don't get the result I'm looking for. In fact, Prahlad Maharaj said in his prayers that never has there been a time when I tried for sense gratification where I actually got it and I was actually happy. Never. 0 time. And that means from the beginning of the material creation up till now, no one has ever gotten what they want. That's a clue. And by adjustment, let me change from the front to the back. Prabhupada, I heard the other day, was speaking about, you get on a train, especially in India, and everyone's quibbling over which seat it's going to be in. Japan, you don't do that. You just get on, everyone knows where they seat, and they're very careful about making sure. America, everyone sprawls out. I notice you go to the airport, and there's 3 people and 10 seats, and they got all their coats and everything laying over there, so there's nowhere to sit. Japan, everyone's very careful. In India, there's a different sense of space. Am I right on this? Okay, I thought, just want to make sure it wasn't just me. So, different sense of space. So Prabhupada was talking, get on a train, and then there's some kind of dispute over who gets what seat and how much of it you get and things like that. So Prabhupada said, 3-hour train ride. You can be all upset about you didn't get the seat you wanted, or you can just stand up for 3 hours. And what's the difference? The person knows 3 hours it's going to be over anyway. So it doesn't get so involved in all these, trying to adjust the material world and all these kinds of things. Tries to tolerate the various inconveniences of material nature and not readjust them. So the demigods and demons are now churning the ocean, and they become very tired because it's hard to churn the ocean with a big, huge golden mountain. And so now Vishnu, who is on top of the hill, comes down and he starts to churn. And then it really started to move. So he moved the mountain himself. He becomes the pivot point, and now he's also churning himself. So he's doing everything. Generally, that's actually, Krishna is doing everything. We're only instruments. but one who's situated at ahankar. Ahankar means, kar means to do, and ahang means me, I. So I'm the doer, ahankar. Somebody who's in ahankar, we say false ego. They think I'm the big doer. But Krishna is actually the doer. And this is the best situation in life, to be an instrument. Just let Krishna do. Do your duty dutifully, but don't take credit for the result, and also don't consider yourself to be the doer. Do it on behalf of Krishna, to the best of your ability, but understand how he's making it happen. And then don't be attached to the results, good or bad. So, as they're churning now the ocean, what happens? What comes out first from the milk ocean? Hala hala. That's not a good thing. It's heavy poison. Kalakut poison, called hala hala. The poison starts coming out of the milk ocean, and it's endangering the entire universe. So Vishnu, in order to glorify Lord Shiva, then says, okay, the whole universe is going to be ruined. The only one person can save us, Lord Shiva. So he takes all the demigods and the demons, and they go before Lord Shiva, and they begin to pray, please help us. Please save us from this impending danger. And one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavatam is in this section where Lord Shiva replies. Actually, it's after he drinks the poison. And he's so powerful, he has these mystic powers. He was able to shrink this huge amount of this oil spill, this disaster, shrink it all down into the size that would fit in the palm of his hand, and he could quaff it. And he did that, and his throat turned blue. That's why he's called Nilakanta. If you notice a picture of Lord Shiva, he's got a blue throat. That's from this pastime, from drinking the ocean of poison. So afterwards he says to his wife, Tapyante lokatapena sarva prayasojana parama aradanam taddi purushasya kilatmana. He says that the highest way of worshiping God is to see that he's within the heart of every living being, and to try to do good for the living entity who's there with God within the heart. And he uses the word tapya, tapyante, lokatapena. Loka means for the people. To perform some kind of, to take some suffering on oneself for the sake of elevating others spiritually. He says, this is the highest form of worship that you can perform. Parama aradanam. Aradanam means worship, and parama means the supreme. So, parama aradanam taddi purushasya kilatmana. So we'll consider again, because I like it so much, this word tabernacle. Can you look it up, please? A tabernacle is a mobile temple. A mobile temple. And you'll notice if you do a search for this word, tabernacle, in the Veda base. If you don't have a Veda base, run, don't walk, go get one. You'll notice that the word comes up quite a few times. And Prabhupada uses it over and over again. He says the material tabernacle. So what's he talking about? The material tabernacle. What is he referring to? The hint is that a tabernacle is a moving, a mobile temple. Okay, let's hear from Shamalangi, and maybe we'll fill in the blanks. Okay. Go ahead.
The portable sanctuary in which the Jews carried the Ark of the Covenant through the desert. The Jewish temple. A case or box on a church altar containing the consecrated host and wine of the Eucharist. A place of worship distinguished from a church.
It's movable. You can take it across the desert.
Yeah. And I'm trying to look for...
It's a church. So what's the material tabernacle Prabhupada's talking about? What? The body. every body is a church. It's a temple. It's a moving temple. This is the vision of advanced devotees like Lord Shiva. He's the most advanced Vaishnava, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. And here's how he does his worship. He sees that within every body, he sees every body as a tabernacle. It's a moving temple. It's a sacred place. And that's where he does his worship. So the advice is given by the great acharyas like Jiva Goswami that the highest kind of worship is to approach the tabernacle, that is the moving church, and to help the spiritual essence, the soul within that tabernacle, to advance spiritually. Is that possible? Is it possible to help somebody else to improve spiritually, to give somebody spiritual aid that will help them help themselves to improve? Yes? We have one yes. That's out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 99 devotees here. And 2 yeses. Is it possible to help somebody spiritually? How do you do that? What does that mean, book distribution? Please unpack whatever you're saying. Tell specifically how that would help. And what kind of books are you referring to, and what does it all mean? Go ahead.
The book
Speak in
Bhagavatam,
layman's terms like we never met you before. We don't know about this Bhakti, Hare Krishna, anything. Tell us now.
I'll make a feeble attempt. People are not aware about the biggest miseries in life, which is birth, death, old age, and disease. They are lost in their own ways of improving their condition. So what devotees do is they go out and they give these books which contain the knowledge about how you can solve the real problems of life.
Okay, that's helpful. What other ways? How do you help somebody spiritually?
Giving prasadam, feeding prasadam.
What does that mean? I don't know what prasadam is.
So prasadam is food that we cook. We first offer it to the Lord, and then the remnants we distribute amongst ourselves, and we can honor the prasadam by eating it.
How does that help?
That helps by cleansing us out of all the anarthas, and it also brings in sukriti, which will, in future, if somebody is not aware of spiritual practices, it adds to their sukriti and slowly will take
What's
them
sukriti?
Sukriti is it may be any activity we do unknowingly, but which is for like a service to Krishna. It may not be known at that point, but it adds up to your devotional piety, as Mataji said.
So you're telling me you all have spiritual food, you all offer it to God first,
yeah.
And it takes a different quality? It has some kind of vibration or something?
Yeah, it's.
And if anybody eats it, then magically they become spiritually benefited.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What else?
Giving the holy names, which in other terms is also called the art of mantra meditation. Mantra means that which delivers the mind. As Prabhuji was saying, people are suffering due to various kinds of miseries, and this mantra meditation is a very ancient practice where when somebody chants this sacred mantra, it actually relieves them of all the anxieties and impurities of the mind, and helps and brings them to a state where they are ready to understand the deeper meaning of life.
What makes it sacred? What does sacred mean anyway?
It's a mantra which is very powerful because it is directly coming from the spiritual world, and this mantra is passed down through succession of disciplic succession of various great teachers, And one actually, so that makes it more powerful because it is directly descending from the spiritual world. And so by repeating those mantras, because the fact that it's coming in a cyclic succession from a higher destination, that itself makes it very special. And that's why I said it's very sacred.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, interesting, this kind of topic that we're bringing up now, this is, we'll find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the subject of the sages of Naimisaranya who have gathered together for a seminar. And the topic of the seminar, which is to last 1,000 years, is how to do the highest good to the most number of people. So this is the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, is the discussion of what it is we can do to help everybody else, to give an opportunity to people to advance spiritually. So we have heard so far about sacred names, sacred food, sacred books, and their distribution, giving them to other people. Any other ideas of how to help those in the tabernacle? Yes.
Performing your prescribed duties, it also attracts other people.
What do you mean by that?
For
I mean,
example,
if I work at 7-Eleven, if I just go in every day, that'll
prescribed
help
duties
people?
in the devotional life, the way we practice, it attracts. I had a very profound example I just wanted to share.
Okay.
I was in a Walmart. I went for my car repair, and then I was holding this japa bead bag in my neck. And then I had a very quick conversation with the car mechanic, and he said that, oh, you guys are doing something religious? I said, yeah, somewhat. But then he said, oh, you wanted to go to heaven. I said, no, I don't want to go to heaven. He said, why? I said, you know, in the heaven, my credit, once it will be over, I will come back again here. So, oh, really? I said, I really wanted to go somewhere where he, that Almighty, whom we don't know where he is, but somewhere, because I was not sure, you know, whether he's aware, but I don't want to name. I just said I wanted to be where, you know, that Almighty is there, just wanted to be with him. And he said, oh, that's very nice perspective. I never heard like that. And then after that, the conversation started, and it ended up being, I handed it over him a Bhagavad Gita, you know, in my next visit. So sharing something, since we were holding this japa bead, it has a profound impact on him, looking me differently, the way I responded something to him. I think it changed his mindset, which has never heard.
I see, that's interesting, and it's really nice to hear those kind of anecdotes. It reminds me, Nirkula and I were driving home from the temple a couple of weeks ago. We stopped at that gas station. It's an Arco gas station. And we went into the Arco, or she went into the Arco. I was filling the gas, she went in to pay. Is that right? So she comes back out, and then the guy, he's the only person in there, he comes running out to where we are, and he goes, what's going on? What are you guys doing? Because we were just like this. What is it? You know, he's like, he was so fascinated and interested. And meanwhile, there's people going in the shop, you know, and he's like totally abandoned the cash register and everything else. He was outside, and he said, yeah, Hare Krishna. And we gave him also a Bhagavad Gita, and he gave a donation and went back in. Meanwhile, people are standing there looking at, what's he doing out there? And just similar, just walking around, doing what you do. Sometimes it attracts people naturally, eh? Let's hear from a different perspective. Has anybody here ever experienced in their life getting spiritual help and improving themselves? Is there a point in time? We heard from Ananta earlier. He told how he was coming from Russia, and he had an optimism when he was entering the country that if he comes here, then he'd have a much better chance of actually being happy in the material world. And then he came in contact with the Bhagavad Gita, and he said he transferred that optimism to bhakti. Anybody here have a specific instance where you were helped from somebody from outside, and you just noticed it yourself, and you said, this is it, I'm transferring? Yes, Prabhu, Shankar.
I remember when I was around 10 years old, so we used to have every year this Mahashivratri Utsav, that the day that comes in month of February.
Where were you? Can you give us the...
In Mumbai. I was in Mumbai.
You grew up in Mumbai?
Yeah.
Okay.
Born and brought in Mumbai. So we used to have this Mahashivratri Utsav, and every year there would be the whole night, some discussion on Lord Shiva's pastimes and singing of some kirtans and all, on different kinds of kirtans. So I remember one year when I was around 10 years old, that time, right outside our home there was a big pandal put up, and some people came who sang. Till the time I never heard this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but that time, the whole night they were singing this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but it was in reverse order. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And I liked it so much. That was the first time I ever heard the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So I thought, they will come every year, but they just came for that year, and I was hankering to see them again, but they never came again. And I practically forgot for 10 years, until I was 20, 21 years old. Then I came in contact with devotees, and again I was introduced. But that was the whole night.
When did you hear it again?
That was...
So you heard it, and you were inexplicably attracted to the mantra, and you were hankering to hear it again. It didn't come back, but then when was the next time you reconnected?
When I was almost 21 years old.
Where was it?
In Mumbai itself.
Tell us.
Oh, that was actually very interesting. One of my school friend, school and also college friend, we studied together. He and his father were admitted in the hospital. And he didn't have mother, so I went to stay with them in the hospital. And some of the devotee in whose room there used to be classes in that hospital, hostel, but that was medical college, So that boy brought some books for this friend of mine, that you read these books for him and his father. But they didn't have any interest. So I was staying with them, I started reading the books.
Which books were they, pray tell?
Science of Self-Realization.
Oh my goodness. You just came because of that. Your first day here. Rajat. Rajat just walked in the door earlier here. Let's please welcome him. Give it obeisance. And you picked up a Science of Self-Realization. I see some parallels coming in here. Okay, thank you very much for being our witness. Okay, go ahead.
So I took that book. I asked him that, can I take these books to my home? He said, yes, please take. So I took for a couple of weeks, and then I went to give him back to his hostel room, and I said, do you have more books? I like it really very much. He said, come every Saturday we have gatherings here. And that's how I got pulled into.
That was it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, very interesting, because this seems to verify what Sudeepa's told us here. He told us by distributing spiritual books you could actually benefit people. Didn't you say that? And now we're hearing you got it. Where did you get your Science of Self-Realization, by the way? Do you mind telling? Is that not too much pressure?
I picked it up at Amber Cafe.
Go ahead, just tell, because this is no pressure. This is being broadcast internationally. So
actually, I was reading a lot of books, but this one was at Amber Cafe. I picked it up.
Where at Amber Cafe? And a smart box?
Yes.
Had a little plastic box that says, "Okay, yeah." Those are our little robots all over the city that give out these books, even while we're sleeping. Yeah. Silva Prabhu is putting those all over. So what was your experience? What attracted you to the box? Tell us, can you give us some details of what happened?
Sure. I mean, I think, you all go through periods of life where you're seeking something and you start inquiring and reading, so you start noticing these things. And I mean, I saw the book, and there was something in me in the last few years that I've been thinking about these things, so it attracted me to the book, and I started.
It attracted you?
Well,
as in it called to you, kind of like you saw that and it matched up with the things you were already asking for.
That's exactly right. And I started reading it like 10 pages every night, and once the book appealed to me, and I said, let me find out more about this movement. And I Googled, Hare Krishna Mountain View, and I saw the address of this temple, and I called a number, and they said 4 o'clock. Why don't you come on?
We should feel very honored that he's here today. because he's being directed. This is in Bhagavad Gita, don't mind, but in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshara jundatishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rujani maya. I'm directing all the souls in this world, every soul, I'm directing them from within the heart. And then he says, if someone makes the slightest inquiry about me, then I start to give intelligence. And so you made that inquiry, right?
Right.
And you got the book,
Right.
and then you came here.
Right.
So this is, you're being directed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was profound. Anything else?
No.
Okay, that was brilliant.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Please. I think we're on to something. We have these, actually in a beautiful book called the Brihat Bhagavatamrita. May I have a look at it? Let's just look at the book. This is a seminal book of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas written by Sanatana Goswami. And it represents something very important. Not only is it an all-important book in our lineage, written by one of the direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sanatana Goswami, who is the spiritual master of Rupa Goswami, of whom we follow in the footsteps. But also, this book came out after Prabhupada left the planet. In other words, it was translated by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, having been trained and empowered by him to do such a thing. And you'll notice when you read the foreword by Joseph O'Connell, who was the foremost scholar of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the academic world, the words of praise that he gives for this book, the quality of it, and the capability of the author, Gopi Puranadana Prabhu, will astound you and inspire you to read this book. But in this book, there's a personal story given by a devotee who went back to Godhead. And he tells his disciple, who is on a similar path, that generally Vaishnavas don't like to talk about themselves, but because telling one's own story is the best way to teach others, I'm going to tell you my story. And then he tells his whole story about how he came in contact with Krishna consciousness and so forth. And his disciple was a devotee of Goddess Durga. The whole family tradition was to worship Kamakya Devi. They were from Assam. They live in Assam. And worshiped Kamakya Devi, and one night in a dream, Kamakya Devi came to this young Brahmin and gave him a mantra and said, here, I'm giving you a great gift. Take this mantra. It will fulfill all your desires. So he began chanting the mantra. And the mantra itself directed him on his path, which led him to Vrindavan. And there he met his spiritual master, Gopakumar, who had been sent there by Srimati Radharani. And that's when he began to tell his own story about how he came to Krishna consciousness and so forth. So it is actually a very edifying practice to ask devotees how they came in contact with Krishna consciousness, how they realized it, how they got this impetus to practice Krishna consciousness and so forth. So, back to the story. The demigods and demons are churning the milk ocean, and first came out poison, so this is a good lesson too. Whenever you start a project, don't expect it to go as planned right away. It may look like it's about to implode, or poison might come out and so forth. You have to take help from higher authorities and then move on. And as they kept churning the milk ocean, various auspicious entities came out of the ocean. First was Surabhi, the celestial cow who fulfills all desires. Kamadhenu, she fulfills all desires. And that was taken by the demigods because they take care of cows very carefully and protect them, because cows are the essence of all religious principles personified. And Prabhupada says human reason fails to may fail to grasp how this is so. But if one spends time around cows, one can derive religious principles and become pious just by being around them and caring for them very carefully, by caring for them. So the Surabi cow came out. Who knows what else came out of the milk ocean? Lakshmi came a little later. If you can get the order, they all came out too. We have a prize in my bag here. You know? I don't know. I'll read the list. Here it is. Go ahead, Bali can do it. Bali will try.
So the horse, which is Sreva, Airavat, the elephant.
Keep going, you're almost there.
Then
give him a hint. What Vishnu wears around his neck?
Vajanti Mala.
Kashtuba. But we'll give it to you anyway. Next one?
Next one would be maybe Lakshmi, goddess.
Actually, it's better than the flowers we offer here. And Lord Krishna stole it from the heavenly...
Oh, Parijat, the flower. Okay.
Okay, that wasn't too good of a hint, right? Okay, we'll count that anyway. Then came something, the person everyone's after and everybody wants to live in their house. Lakshmi. Okay, we'll give you that one too. All right, number 7. And I'll give you a hint. This was given to the demons. And it was a goddess. And people who hang around outside 7-Eleven with a brown bag. You guys don't know about brown bags. Okay. People hang around the street corners with a brown bag. What's inside the brown bag?
Alcohol.
Okay, so the goddess of alcohol, of intoxication, her name is? Varuni. Varuni came out. She went to the demons. They said, we'll take her. The demons like to brown bag it. And then number 8. Number 8 was the culmination, actually. So who was it who came out with the goods? Dhanvantari came out. Yeah. So Dhanvantari was a partial incarnation of the Lord, and he's actually the source of medical science. And he came out, he was very young countenance, and he came out of the milk ocean with the pot of nectar. So now what happens? The pot of nectar, the demons, of course, they couldn't wait to get their hands on it, so they snatched it out of his hands. And the demigods were thinking, okay, we lost everything. But Vishnu had another plan. But interestingly, once they snatched the nectar, the demons took it aside, and they began to fight amongst themselves. So this is a commentary on the morality or immorality of the material world. And Prabhupada gives in a very interesting story or sutra, and that is that thieves go and they rob something, they steal. And then they meet in a clandestine place, and then they say, let's divide this up honestly after they steal. And this is sort of the idea of the material world. Everything belongs to Ishvar, the supreme controller. It doesn't belong to me. But I'm dividing it up fairly with all the others. So what happened there were weak demons and there were strong demons. And the weak demons, knowing that the strong demons were just going to take it anyway, they said, let's be fair and share it with the demigods. Because after all, because they didn't want to be cheated out of all the nectar. Or at least they didn't want to be have it that only those who were strong demons got to take the nectar, and they didn't get anything. So there was this argument going on, and meanwhile, the demigods were distraught because they said demons snatched it unfairly, and then Vishnu had a plan to take it back, and what was that? Mohini. So Mohini is his female incarnation, and he is so attractive in that female form that even Lord Shiva, who is known as the most self-controlled person in the universe, was so attracted to Mohini Murti in one pastime that he lost it and chased after her. in front of all the sages and everybody else. Interestingly, though, very interestingly, after he had totally lost his composure and chased after Mohini Murti, he went right back to his duty. He didn't become morose. He understood, okay, Vishnu is so powerful. He bewildered me in this way. And without any begrudgment, without any huge remorse, he went back to his duty and went back to doing his service. So, Mohini Murti, Krishna had assumed this attractive form that the demons could not resist. And she walked in front of the demons, and they lost their composure. And they said, every one of them wanted to possess her. And so they all approached her, and she said, let me just take the matter in my own hands. I'll take that nectar for you. And, you know, we'll just give it to the demigods and let them take their share because they're so because they're so selfish, everything, let them have it. And they didn't argue with her at all because they were so bewildered by her charms. And all the while, the plan of the Lord was to simply take it all and give it to the demigods. So, not wanting to offend Mohini Murti, the demons just let her do whatever she wanted. Took the nectar, gave it to the demigods. They sat in a row like we do for prasadam. Sharirad Vijajal. And they began drinking the nectar. And the only one of the demons who was not bewildered by Mohini and saw what was going on, that there was a scam going on, was Rahu. So he went and he disguised himself as one of the demigods. He sat in the prasadam line. And as he was just drinking the nectar, Vishnu noticed. Actually, the sun and the moon noticed. Even Vishnu didn't notice. Because the sun and the moon are enemies of Rahu. I mean, this is all very esoteric and detailed information, but they noticed and they sounded the alarm. Vishnu then noticed what was going on. He took his chakra and he cut off the head of Rahu, which lived. Everything else died because the nectar had touched his mouth. So in this story of churning the milk ocean, there are many lessons to be had. One is that one must be patient. This is something that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and others, acharyas, talk about. When we churn the Bhagavatam, when we churn the holy name, when we churn our hearts to come to the highest destination, it takes some time. There is a way in which I'm very practiced at sense gratification. Having engaged in it for many lifetimes, according to the Shastra, I'm really good at it. And I have a lot of muscle memory. Sound familiar? Yes or yes? Yes. Okay. So, don't expect overnight results. Wait. You have to wait. Wait for it. And the devotee is fully confident that by engaging in the process, he or she will get the result. It's sure and certain, but one has to wait and be patient. Now, there are early signs from taking this life of bhakti that are very encouraging. Nothing is as encouraging as progress. And one will experience this progress for oneself. In the very early stages of bhakti, Rupa Goswami describes how one's connection to sinful activities and their results in the material world is severed because of the direct connection one has to the Supreme Personality of God. And there he gives us a very important directive, and that is that all suffering comes from one source. And wouldn't it be good to know where all suffering comes from and why I'm suffering? Yes or yes? And he defines that as ignorance. The cause of all suffering in this world is ignorance. Otherwise pronounced ignorance. So, ignorance, called avidya, is a cause of suffering. For instance, if I drive on the 101 freeway home tonight with a blindfold on, I'll have some insurance problems, at the very least. And similarly, ignorance means I'm in darkness in this world. I don't know how to act properly, and therefore I transgress the laws of nature, and I cause problems for myself. So, because one takes to the process of pure devotional service, begins to perform the practice, and becomes connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as I quoted earlier from the Brahma Samhita, Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. From the beginning of the verse, yes, twindra gopa matavendra mahosa karma bandhan rupa pala bhajana matanoti, karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam, govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. And that is that everyone in this material world is afflicted because of ignorance and is suffering the results of karma. From Indra, the king of heaven, down to the Indragopa germ, which is a tiny bug identified by the Vedic literature. Every one of them is getting the results of their karma and suffering, except for one who is engaged in bhakti bhajan. Means that once one begins the process of bhakti, shravanam kirtanam, hearing and chanting about Krishna, there's a churning of the heart, and the cleansing process begins. And one's connection to sinful activities is actually severed. And therefore, the first symptom Rupa Goswami gives of, somebody please go take care of them. Just make sure they got everything they want and need. Okay, they can do that. I just want to make sure. The first symptom he gives for one who takes to the process of devotional service is that following the path of pure bhakti puts one immediately in transcendental pleasure. One experiences happiness. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Brahma bhuta prasanatma na shochati na kangshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. That the transcendental position is characterized by joyfulness. It's the first symptom of one's reconnection to the divine source, Krishna, and freedom from the material world. We've changed directions. We've redirected our optimism towards the spiritual world. And one also becomes liberated from the reactions of sinful activities. So someone might argue, I don't seem to be completely disconnected from miseries. But the Shastras and the Acharyas say that actually, after one surrenders to Krishna, begins the process of devotional service, whatever so-called or seeming reactions are coming to one are actually Krishna-given. They're not a reaction to one's previous karma, but they're customized miseries which are coming simply to help one, to give one more impetus in devotional service and to purify one. And there may also be what's described as the spinning down of the fan. Once the electrical plug is pulled out, the fan is slowing down. But even that is described by the Shastra to be a prescribed amount of misery to induce a devotee to give up the last vestiges of attachment to the material world. And one who takes the devotional service will experience this directly, that I'm unplugged from the material world. And the sinful reactions which I'm experiencing, I don't experience in the same way as I did before. I'm experiencing as a burning out of the last vestiges of my karma in the material world, and it's purifying rather than disturbing. So he just says that this is the first thing that one of the first symptoms that one will experience when one takes to the process of devotional service. And the second is a life of auspiciousness, which means that, according to Rupa Goswami, one knows how to do good for others. One can understand what the goal of life is. Many of you talked about how to help other people spiritually. It becomes more and more clear that how to do good for others. One has a clear idea that by giving spiritual knowledge, by distribution of the spiritual vibration, people are benefited. And therefore, Rupa Goswami says, one who has taken to Krishna consciousness has entered into a life of auspiciousness. He can do good for himself, she can do good for others. And these are compared to the two sides of a little sprout that comes out of the ground, because bhakti is like a little creeper that comes out of the soil. And when it first shows, a creeper has a rough side, or a creeper, a sprout, I should say, has a rough side and a shiny, smooth side. Any gardeners in here? Maybe we should talk about years ago. Yeah. Did anybody sprout a little plant in a cup? Otherwise, we're going to have to give homework. Everyone should get a little, stop at the nursery, get a little cup. You can get some tulsi seeds. If you don't have a tulsi in your house, do you have a tulsi, anybody? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so get some tulsi seeds. Who's got tulsi seeds they want to share? Bali and Vishaka Leela? Okay, we have some tulsi wallas here. You can get some seeds. Everyone raise your hand who has seeds. Delete. Okay, so see them afterwards. Is that okay? You can get yourself at least a few seeds, tulsi seeds, and then homework for Tuesday, because I don't know if the nursery's open tomorrow. Is it? On Memorial Weekend? Probably open. You can go to the nursery and get yourself a little sprouting cup. You'll probably be 8 of them altogether, and some soil. Are you still with me here? Okay, and get some seeds, put them in the little planter cups. You can just ask the nursery people, they'll help you out. And then water it, and grow yourself a little tulsi plant. And then we'll report back in a few weeks and see how you're doing. Okay? So when the sprout comes up, and there's a shiny side and sort of a rougher side. So analogies are given by the acharyas like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which describe the creeper. And it's got these two sides, which indicate auspiciousness and the eradication of sinful activities. And then the creeper grows up, and it develops more characteristics and so forth. So the process for purification primarily is hearing. And therefore we describe our system as sonic theology. That's what is, everything is accessible through the mantra. And this is stated by Narada Muni in his instructions to Srila Vyasadeva. He says, mantra murtim amurtikam. A murti is a word that means form, and it also means difficulty. So he says, mantra murti amurtikam, what is normally very difficult becomes very easy through the mantra. You can see the form of the Supreme, and you can have direct experience of the Supreme through the mantra. And also, the Srimad Bhagavatam is described as the book of mantras, which has descended from the spiritual world. Krishne swadam upakate dharmaganadi bisaha kalonashta drishamesha puranarko dinoditaha. Nirkula, why are you smiling? You just happy or what? That's a good reason to smile. That always makes me smile too. Good to see you, Vishwa. Haribo Rupali. Yeah, it's fascinating that this incarnation of sound, how God comes in the form of sound. And if you want to know more about the Bhagavatam, and I highly recommend that you take a few weeks off from work, just call your boss and say, I ain't coming in. And get yourself a copy of the Tattva Sandarbha, at least before September, because September is the appearance and disappearance days of Jiva Goswami, who wrote the Tattva Sandarbha. And Jai, Prabhu, will make sure that you get it, because we've been negotiating with the devotees in Vrindavan who are making these beautiful books in order to get copies of these literatures in the hands of everybody here at ISV and anybody else who wants them in the Bay Area. Right, Jai? We had a conference call the other night with Maharshi in Vrindavan, who's the head of the Sanskrit Institute there. And I got my hands on a copy of the Tattva Sandarbha and read the whole thing while we were in Vrindavan last time. And there, by reading that book, you'll get scientific scriptural understanding of the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam, which gives you a very strong impetus to read it every day. And this is a mainstay of our practice in devotional service. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the book that attracted Shukadev Goswami, who was liberated even in the womb, and when he came out of the womb at the age of 16, he took off running because he didn't even want to see his family. That's detached. And he took off for the forest. He was totally detached from the material world. And he was attracted back to actually study under his father after he heard a couple of verses from the Bhagavatam. He's someone whose his ability of distinguishing material and spiritual sound was highly refined. As said in the Sri Upanishad, Anyadevahura sambhavad, anyadahura sambhavat, iti shushumadhiranam yenas tadvijichakshire. One result is obtained by hearing material sound, and a completely different result is obtained by hearing material sound. They will transform you in opposite directions. They will take you in opposite directions. And therefore, the sound vibration is lauded in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself as being of the same quality as Krishna himself. In other words, it is non-different from Krishna. It is his incarnation in sound. And Jiva Goswami in the Tattva Sandarbha gives evidence from all the other Puranas which glorify the Srimad Bhagavatam as the pinnacle of all evidence of the spiritual world. And how else would you come to know about a region that you can't see with your eyes or experience? In Plato's Republic, there's a section called Liberation of the Cave Dwellers, and Plato goes into great detail describing how one who lives, how he actually describes the entire material world as a cave. And according to the description of the Brihat Bhagavatamrita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's very accurate because it's an enclosed area. We're closed off from the spiritual world in here. Can you feel it? Sun is our only impetus for life here. The sun is amazing. And we miss it. I miss it every day. The sun's coming up, but I don't really think about it, how Krishna is present in the sun and so forth. It's an enclosed universe, said like a cave-like existence we have. And then he said, everyone in the cave is bound by the feet and by the neck. And then he describes how there's a screen at the back of the cave, and there's a little bit of a fire burning, and then there's shadows, images on the walls of the cave, and that the people in the cave are transfixed looking at these moving shadows, and they take that as the ultimate reality. And that, he says, this whole material world, the conditional life, is just like this. We take this shadow-like existence where the material body is insubstantial. I take it as worthy of $20,000 diamond on my ear and so forth. Decorate it, take care of it. I've misplaced my sense of priority. And I'm taking the shadow-like existence as reality. Then he says, if someone comes into the cave to describe what it's like in the outside world, it'll be very difficult. Because people inside will be unwilling to change. They may find it fantastical what you're telling them. And even if you abruptly took them out into the light, they would be so stunned by the dazzling light that they may not be able to see or appreciate anything. Therefore, he says, by gradual description, of what it's like in the outside world, and by giving a sample of the light, bringing it in and showing just a little beam of light on the wall and saying, see, this is something what it's like out there, and so forth, the person will gradually come to appreciate that there's another world. So the Srimad Bhagavatam enters this world according to the, by Sutta Goswami, Krishne Swadhamo Bhagate Dharmaganadi Bisaha, Kalonasha Drishamesha Purar Narkodanodita. In the darkness of this cave, in the age of Kali especially, this light has entered, and by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, one gradually comes to transfer. Ananta, you here? Yeah, you said transfer your optimism. He told us earlier, he transferred his optimism from America, so you thought you could get something here, and then after he read Bhagavad Gita, transferred your optimism to where? Krishna. Okay. So this is altogether possible by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. You're hearing directly about the spiritual world. You're getting the qualities of Krishna. It's going into the ears, and there's a progression. Srimad Bhagavatam, as you churn, and the churning process just by hearing. God helps those who help themselves. Prabhupada said it means, helping yourself means putting yourself in front of transcendental sound vibration. So whatever it takes to drag yourself across the floor, if you have to get yourself in front of the transcendental vibration, wherever it's happening, and let it go in. So, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyan Taksto Hibhadrani Vidhunoti Suritsatam. This verse in the Bhagavatam, spoken by Sutta Goswami, describes the beginning stage of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, which means that you begin to clarify the heart. You begin to transfer your priorities and your optimism. And there's a winnowing out of the false values that one once had within one's heart. And as one's making ghee, you put it on the stove, you put the heat on low, and then gradually can all the cooks please affirm this? Anybody ever make ghee in that method? Yes, what happens?
We melt the butter in a vessel. We put it on heat, and first the butter melts, and slowly there's some residue which starts coming up. Earlier it is whitish, and then it darkens, and it becomes brown, and then water, and the liquid remaining is ghee.
What do you do with all that stuff?
I just throw it.
Do you scoop it off?
Yeah, I just sieve it.
What kind of spoon do you use to scoop it off with?
I usually sieve it and put like a sieve, and the liquid ghee goes into the bottle, and whatever comes with the residue, I just...
You scrape it off?
Yeah.
With a spoon?
Yes.
What kind of spoon?
A regular spoon.
Slotted spoon? Regular spoon? Strainer?
Okay.
Strainer?
Yeah, so what I meant by sieve is the strainer only.
Okay, strainer, and then you take it off.
Yeah.
And then it's done, right? The first time you take it off, then all the impurities are gone, right?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes.
First time? What if you take it off, and then what happens? What if... Oh. See, I don't know what I'm talking about. That's the problem. Okay, you're doing it by the method that I'm used to seeing. What happens?
You take a spoon and you keep scraping from the top till it's clear.
Every hour?
No, more often than that.
More often. Keeps coming up. Yes. Sorry, Shamalinga, yes. That was my fault. So there's a way in which the impurities come out. We take them off, put them aside. So there's this clearing process by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam that's described in this verse, that gradually all the impurities that are causing me grief by my identification with the material world, they begin to come to the surface and be able to clarify them and winnow them out. And then the next verse says, Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu, which means that there's the next stage in which one's practically free from all of these unwanted desires from within the heart. Practically free. That means the semblance of them is still there, but it's not enough to disturb the mind or distract one in any way. And the acharyas say this indicates the stage of nishta in devotional service. I sort of cut to that quite quickly, but the stage of nishta, or steadiness in devotional service, takes some time. It means that one takes to the process, and first of all, one has to go through the clarification process, which means the purifying stage, which means many impurities come out, and we gradually clear those, as one would do in a clearing stage. And then one comes to nishta, or a very steady state in devotional service. One's no longer disturbed by anartas, what we call unwanted things within the heart. And the acharyas say this takes place by regularly hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Shastra says, therefore, one should regularly, actually says, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, one should constantly hear from the Bhagavatam, and that means at least every day. And by doing that, then one churns the Bhagavatam, one churns one's heart, the impurities come out, and one comes to the perfectional stage. And that was my cue that I asked someone to make at the end of my talk. And now we'll just take a few reflections. Anything that you heard so far that's stuck in your mind. And we'll take 7. It's a lightning round, so give them fast. Whatever comes to your mind. Yes? We have a text coming in. And we'd like to welcome everyone who's joined us online. Thank you very much. We know you have a lot of choices today with the Sadhu Sangha retreat in North Carolina, the Prabhupada Festival in Los Angeles. And we're thrilled that you've chosen to tune in to ISV. We can't express enough gratitude. Thank you very much. And the text-in number, just in case people want to know?
My number is 916-812-6837.
One more time?
916-812-6837.
Yeah, you can text in. Operators are standing by to take your calls. Okay, go ahead.
So this one is from Radhakrishnan Prabhu from Folsom.
Jai.
Jai. And he says, Haribol, wonderful class. When you mentioned churning, I remembered appearance of King Pruthu by churning the body of King Vena.
Yes, nice point. Nice point. 6 more. Yes.
You mentioned ignorance is, cause of all suffering, like something like that. I mean,
yeah.
So, sometimes I feel, whether as a book distributor or even personally, that people are not aware, or at least they don't realize, and they really think they're happy. That's true for me sometimes, or most of the times, about a lot of things. So knowing at least where I am and what am I missing is so very important, so that I can even start going in that direction.
Oh yeah, that's a nice revelation. Just when one knows, actually has an inkling for what one's been missing for so many years, there's a kind of greed that comes up in one's heart to not want to waste a second to try to absorb as much as possible. And even one can become overcoming, bad habits and sleep because of a superior taste, that one is so eager to hear more that one forgoes other things, not as an austerity, but as a necessity to hear more and to go deeply in it. Now I saw Shamalangi with your notebook out, so I know you got something. And Sudeep, we're coming up with you next because you got some definite greed coming.
I like the story. I mean, we know it, but it was very nice refresher. And there are small points, even I didn't know, especially the sequence of what came out during the churning. But I like the part where you said, how earlier the demons were towards the tail of Vasuki, and Vishnu with the demigods was on the head side of Vasuki, and then they were not satisfied. So it's very demoniac, like it's out of demoniac nature when we try to adjust things according to our own liking, not knowing what will be the actual outcome. So we should have God, like Krishna, adjust everything for us and just continue with our duty.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice. That's a lesson can take away. Sudeep, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the wonderful class.
Right, because your last one was a text, so that didn't count for you.
One of the many points that I take home with is the example of how halahal came first by churning of that. So at the beginning of any projects, if difficulties or challenges arise, one should not get bogged down and continue on. So thank you so much.
Expect the poison. Adjust your expectations. Shankar. Oh, Bali, were you going to go? I'm sorry.
I think he spoke the same thing with that.
Same thing. Okay. All right. Good. We're up to number 4. We got 7 altogether. And Vishaka Leela is next.
Actually, when this Mataji suggested the point, also you made the point that the demons were actually on the head side of the Vasuki. That actually struck the point that Krishna is always more merciful to demons because they are always less intelligent and against him. Actually, I was thinking similarly in case of Duryodhana also. Krishna was so merciful that he said, you keep the entire kingdom, just give 5 villages to Pandavas. So Krishna is actually always very merciful to demons, more than actually devotees. gives them opportunity to.
They still don't take it. Thank you. Vishaka.
Prabhu, my take-home point is you mentioned that putting ourselves in front of the transcendental sound. And this is my experience. We are addicted to many sounds in this world, but the moment we put our attention to hearing transcendental sound, whether it's chanting the mantras or it's reading Srimad Bhagavatam, once we put our attention, then it's the most satisfying experience that one could get, which is not available through other sounds that we hear.
Nice point. And it's always interesting to me how the mind protests ahead of time. There's this interim point where the mind says, you don't want that. That's boring. And then once you enter into it, you say, that's not boring. What are you talking about? This is the most interesting thing there is. Yeah, nice. That was number 5. 2 more to hit 7. Yes, Jai.
So we talked about Bhukti, Mukti and the Siddhikamis.
Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhikami.
And that was very eye-opening, discussion, and it tells that all the 3 that we talked about, Bhukti, Mukti, and the Siddhikamis, at the end they don't get the stable platform. But on the other hand, Bhakti Yoga takes you to the stable platform.
It's helpful to categorize these things. The Shastra guides us in this way to show us what our position is in the material world, what you get when you do certain things, and we can fortify our intelligence so you can conquer the lower self by the higher self. Thank you, Jai. You were number 6, so 1 more. Yes, Mataji. Okay, get her a microphone over there, please.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a wonderful class. You were mentioning about Lord Shiva getting bewildered by Mohini Murti, so I was just thinking Lord Shiva is the greatest of all Vaishnavas, like he's the greatest Vaishnava, and also he's the incarnation of Krishna. But Krishna is bewildering potency. If Krishna wants to bewilder someone, he can even bewilder Lord Shiva himself. And that too, it was you said, it was front of everyone, all the rishis, munis, and they were all the renunciates in front of everyone. Lord Shiva was bewildered by Krishna. And he was not affected, that he was not in remorse, or he was not depressed that I got bewildered. And he was just happy that that's the power of Krishna, that he can bewilder anyone if he wants. So he was quite proud, Krishna, he was proud of Krishna that he even bewildered. So that's the thing I want to take home, that even if we get bewildered, or if Lord Shiva can get bewildered, it's okay. Even if we get we can also always get back on track.
Yes.
Not to
fantastic. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
We just did a seminar in New Vrindavan called "Failure is the Pillar to Success," and I've just scratched the surface of the whole thing. But it's a fascinating subject, and we did the seminar, class here called Anatomy of a Fall Down, but I thought it was a little bit negative title, so I changed it to Failure is the Pillar to Success. And we talked a lot about this, and it was interesting topic, and that is the devotees found it interesting that how to make comeback and how to not become dissuaded by missteps and so forth and actually grow stronger by them and so forth. I really like your reflection. It was very powerful. Just that Lord Shiva was not embarrassed by the whole situation. Yes, Bali Prabhu, we're in the bonus round now. This is the best part.
Well, I was just thinking of one same pastimes about the puffed up and how one can be proud events. There is similarly, it's a pastime from one of the Puranas where the Brahmanas used to do every day 3 Gayatris, which is exactly 6 a.m., 12 noon, and then 6 p.m. So one day he was been doing for many years, and he was becoming more that I've been never missed anything. So one day he was sleeping in the afternoon before the Gayatris, and the Maya comes in her dream and wake him up. You're sleeping, please wake up, you have to do your Gayatris. So then he got up, and then later on he realized that why Maya has to wake me up? It is her job to stop me not to do. But after he consulted his spiritual master, he said, Maya is waking up you because she wants to keep you continue your puffed up position by being practicing the same. So it's very difficult. So one has to be very careful the other way around and know the reality of his own situation. Being humble is the best way to serve God. Very, very potential example.
In the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, the devotee is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities is very dear to him. For service, he can adjust anything. This is a very profound point you made. Thank you. Yes, number 9.
I had a question if you have time.
If it's a yes or no question, I have time. Go ahead.
Okay. One doubt I had is that Bali Maharaj was at that time the king of the demons. And he is considered one of the 7 Mahajans and great noble person. So why did demons were fighting for nectar or got bewildered since their leader was a great devotee, Bali Maharaj?
Well, Bali was acting in that position, as king of the demons, and it just goes to show that you can't judge the heart of a devotee because of the external circumstances. Vritrasura is another example. He was apparently a demon, but actually his heart was very devotional. And ultimately you'll find in the story of Bali Maharaj, when he met Vamandev, and he offered the 3 steps of land Vaman was asking for, even though Bali's spiritual master told him, don't do it, it's Vishnu, he's going to rip you off. And he gave it anyway. He said, he's Vishnu, I'm going to give it to him. And later, the demigods asked, how did Bali get such benediction? And it's revealed that because Krishna is known as Bhavagrahi Janardhan, he knew the heart of Bali Maharaj, that even though he was acting the part of a demon in his heart, he was actually surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, actually Vamadev sold himself to Bali Maharaj. Still in Patala Loka where they live, that he's his doorkeeper. Even sometimes mentioned in the Shastra that the demigods sometimes come down there to ask Vamanadev to help them fight some war. And he says, I don't know, ask Bali, because I can't go on my own. I'm sold to Bali Maharaj. And they go to Bali and say, can we take Vamana? He said, no, he can't go. So that's because of his devotional heart. So Prahlad Maharaj, similarly, he was born in a demoniac family. So from external circumstances, the Bhagavatam showing one cannot judge. Even the Mahajans can come from this situation. And bhakti is not dependent on any external circumstance. What family one's born in, whether one's a man or an animal. Prahlad Maharaj noted after being pushed forward to speak prayers before Lord Nrsingadev, Bhaktyatu Tosha Bhagavan Gajayutapaya. He said, how can I offer prayers? He was saying, I'm a demon. I come from a demon. My father's Hiranyakashipu. But then he said, I remembered Gajendra. He's an elephant. He could offer prayers. If he can do it, I can do it. If you're just sincere, he said, then, and you have that simple bhakti, then the Lord will be pleased. So, now for churning, we're going to try an experiment for actually churning the... We'll use, when you're churned, you need some implement to churn with, right? So now we're going to churn the holy name, and we'll use the tongue. And according to the Shastra, the first sense to engage in yoga is the tongue. So we have these beads, and we're going to chant one round. So we'll chant in unison. And just use your tongue to repeat the Maha Mantra. And you can just concentrate on the fact that the tongue is an instrument and it can be used in any way, but right now we're going to churn the holy name and see what comes out. And just think about now the mechanics of using your tongue to say the holy names of God. And let everything else happen naturally. For time's sake, we're going to start the mantra in 10 seconds. Krishna 9, Krishna 8, Krishna 7, Krishna 6, Krishna 5, Krishna 4, Krishna 3. And Bali, please show him how you hold your beads, just so he gives an idea. And anybody else who's here for the first time, raise your hand and we'll give you a quick, somebody will come and tutor you how to use your beads. You all ready? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So take that as a home practice, at least a minute a day, something, and then you can expand it from there. If you'd like to take some of these beads with you, if you will commit to doing at least 1 minute a day, you could take the beads home on a loan, and if you can't commit, then they're $100. So either way, you can have them. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming. What a great assembly today. We're going to now have an Artik ceremony. So we're going to put away the books and book stands efficiently, but with great respect for the Shastras. And then we'll stand up and we can have Hare Krishna Sankirtan, chanting together the holy names of the Lord. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanande Haribo.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.